Bump into that nigga boy, baby mom. That bitch ain't want no smoke, wasn't even clean.
People are trying to find as many as 3 gunmen who opened fire outside of a mini-mart in Philadelphia's Frankford neighborhood. 1 person was killed and 2 other people were hurt.
You can get shot in your face, I won't go out like terror. You claiming that 48, huh? What the f you think, nigga? Heard the ops, they keep clicking up. See me got hit with that Ruger. 17 in that clip, that's a ruler. And no, we don't do no subliminal.
The Philadelphia Police Department is trying to cope with the first fatal shooting of an officer in 5 years. It happened early this morning in Frankford when Corporal James O'Connor was shot and killed as he and other SWAT members were trying to serve an arrest warrant.
Boys 13 and 14 charged as kingpins. This wild, salacious, and borderline malicious headline was written by Natalie Pompilio in 2006 about the young boys who were obviously being led down a very dark path by whoever was entrusted to safeguard them. Police were investigating crack dealing in Frankfurt. The 2 brothers are too young to legally vote, drink, or drive, but police say, notice it's always what the police say. The boys, ages 13 and 14, are the leaders of a Frankfurt drug operation who armed themselves with a variety of weapons, including an assault rifle, complete with a bayonet and a sawed-off shotgun. When the boys were arrested early that morning in 2006 at their home on the 5000 block of Duffield Street, police said the 13-year-old was asleep in his bed with a .45 caliber handgun tucked in the back of his pants. The 14-year-old was in another room, lying with easy reach of other guns, the article read. Think about the fact that you have a 13 and a 14-year-old selling crack on the streets of Philadelphia, and they're armed, said Philadelphia Police Narcotics Captain Chris Werner. The arrest came after an investigation that lasted several weeks, Werner said. Police say undercover officers brought crack from the younger boys 3 times. Armed with that and information that guns were involved in the drug operation, police obtained search warrants the day before the raid for 3 locations: the boys' home on Duffield Street and 2 residences on the 1600 block of Granite Street. The raids recovered about $10,000 worth of drugs, mostly crack, 3 guns, and about 500 rounds of ammunition, and almost $600 in cash. Hardly kingpins, but I digress. The amount of money may seem insignificant, Werner said, but that's a lot of money for teenagers. Plus, he said, the volume of drugs, they were, quote, players in a bigger operation. They were hooked in with someone supplying them, he said. $10,000 worth of drugs, you're not going to put that in the hands of someone you don't trust, he told the newspaper. The teens were arrested on drug charges. Their names were not released at the time because they were juveniles. Also taken into custody that night was Damon Williford, 30, of the same address, and Marjorie Logan, 50, and James Walker, who was 19 at the time, both of the 1600 block of Granite Street. Despite the arrest of the adults, police say the boys ran the show, the article read. Now, once again, this article is from 2006, and from then on, the young men in that area would be watched by law enforcement. And from this point on, the city knew exactly who these guys were and watched as things got progressively worse. For years, a group known as SG 1700 operated from the shadows of Scattergood Street. Prosecutors say the group left a trail of violence and intimidation in its wake, and that federal courtrooms, not the streets, will ultimately deliver justice. Frankfurt, located just 6 miles from Center City, has long wrestled with the decline of industry and the erosion of daily quality of life. Once a backbone of Philadelphia's industrial economy, Frankfurt now ranks among its most neglected communities. 1 in 3 residents live below the poverty line. Schools here are underfunded. A lot of rec centers are shuttered. Trauma is normal and violence is routine. The group originally operated around the 5300 block of Lesser Street and used various names including L Block, TCG, 5300, and 5317 over time. The group expanded to other areas of Frankfurt, specifically 1700 Scattergood, which is both a location and the name used in the indictment. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to call them SG-17. Members of SG-17 primarily sold crack and weed, but occasionally sold fentanyl. They used IG, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube to promote their rap videos and brute force to project control over their drug turf. Their main ops come from a few blocks away, mainly from Tackawana projects, known as Whitehall housing projects, bordered by Ditman Street to the south, Mulberry, Harrison and Wakely to the west, north, and east, respectively. They were perpetrators of violence against SG-17. They were charged elsewhere, and they were victims of murder in this very indictment. Now, going through this, every time I mention someone by initial, like say JB or RW, they are either a victim who testified, or more than likely, they snitched and cooperated with the state. It doesn't say who is who specifically in the files, but context clues can kind of give you a good idea. Hassan Elliott, 21 at the time of his arrest, was no stranger to violence. Prosecutors labeled him the gang's enforcer, tying him to multiple murders, including the March 2019 killing of Tyree Jr. and the 2020 shooting of Sergeant James O'Connor. Music videos like Dear Mama were filmed in the same stash house where Sergeant James O'Connor was killed, and it became a key piece of evidence. Khalif Lil Leaf Sears appeared alongside Haas in that video and others, flashing guns, drugs, and money. Guns and drugs and money is what is guaranteed to draw the Fed's attention. While not tied to any specific killing, Leaf's role in amplifying SG-17's presence was undeniable. Kelvin Nit Jimenez, another alleged shooter, was found guilty of killing 19-year-old Kasim Glizzy Rogers in 2018, a murder prosecutors said was about territory. And finally, the last of the four in the indictment was Dominique Don Parker, one of the teens I first mentioned that was labeled as a quote drug kingpin at 13 or 14 by the media and law enforcement. The older ones like Nit and Dom would give the younger ones like Haas and Leaf and others not named in the indictment crack and weed to sell. They cut, weighed, and packaged the crack into bundles, usually $130 packaged in $5 trash cans. Haas and Leaf and the other young boys like them would return $100 to the gang and keep $30 for profit for themselves. Over the span of the conspiracy, the group sold around 14 kilos while under surveillance. They did this all day, every day for years when they weren't locked up. Kasim Rogers, a high school senior, Tyree Jr., a father working at Amazon, Dante Mugga Walker, a neighborhood father trying to change course, and Sergeant James O'Connor, a 23-year-old veteran of the force, gunned down, serving a warrant. All were victims of the gang. Kasim, Tyrone, and Dante were all alleged to be part of the other gangs that SG-17 was warring with. In March 2025, a jury returned its verdict, guilty on all counts. 2 pled guilty and 2 went to trial. The 4 defendants now face life in prison, no parole. The government's case in chief took approximately 8 weeks. The evidence in this case consisted of testimony of law enforcement, witnesses, civilian witnesses, expert witnesses, cooperating witnesses, recorded calls and transcripts, surveillance videos, pictures, social media records, physical evidence, and audio intercepts from the prison. The physical evidence includes, but is not limited to, drug seizures, firearms and ballistic seizures, DNA evidence, and electronic evidence. Additionally, The government introduced business records such as telephone records, internet service provider records, and property records as evidence of the charges against the defendants and to corroborate the testimony of all witnesses. The main element that the government had to prove to establish a conspiracy to violate Section 1962C is a voluntary agreement to participate in an enterprise through a pattern of, quote, racketeering activity. Legally, the term enterprise includes any individual, partnership, corporation, association, or other legal entity, and any union or group of individuals associated. Racketeering generally refers to a pattern of illegal activities carried out for profit, often involving extortion, fraud, or other criminal acts, often organized by a criminal enterprise. The term is commonly associated with organized crime and is often prosecuted under the Racketeer Influence and Corruption Organizations Act, or RICO. Prosecutors allege that SG-17 functioned as a criminal enterprise using violence and intimidation to carry out its goals. At the center of the case is a sweeping racketeering indictment which accuses the defendants of conspiring to commit serious crimes, including aggravated assault, murder, and federal drug trafficking violations. According to the government, members of SG-17 not only carried out acts of violence, but also use social media as a tool to amplify their presence. The government intends to introduce many social media posts and rap videos containing statements of people charged and other alleged SG-17 members. Count 1 of the indictment recites 49 overacts. While not detailing every fact, what I'm about to break down is a description of many of the prominent acts that the government presented at trial. For time and not to be redundant, I left some of the shootings that were charged in this document out. Hassan Rogers, aka Glizzy or Seen Glizzy, a 19-year-old from the Tackawana project area, was murdered on December 3rd, 2018 at around 8:15 p.m. outside a corner store at the intersection of Tackawana and Harrison Streets.
People are trying to find as many as 3 gunmen who opened fire outside of a mini-mart in Philadelphia's Frankford neighborhood. 1 person was killed and 2 other people were hurt.
That's right, Tracy and Lucy. He was only 19 years old. We have a photograph of him that we'd like to show you. This is Hassan Rogers. Family tells us he was headed to Lackawanna College in January, but his life was cut short in the city's Frankford neighborhood last night. Police say it was about 8:15 when a gunman opened fire on the 1800 block of Harrison Street, hitting Rogers, 2 others, and a mini market several times. Rogers, who was on the sidewalk at the time, was shot several times. Police rushed him to Jefferson Torresdale Hospital, but he did not survive his injuries. The other victims, a 27-year-old woman was shot in the shoulder and an 18-year-old man was shot in the lower back. They are being treated here at Temple University Hospital, listed in critical but stable condition. No arrests have been made, and police say they found at least 9 shell casings that were fired from about 3 different weapons. So again, police looking for potentially 3 gunmen at this point. No one inside of the store was injured, despite the fact that it was also hit about 4 different times. The customers and the employees that were working there were okay. We know that homicide detectives are in the process of looking at the surveillance video.
Prior to the incident, Qasim and 3 other people were outside of the store. 2 of those people, only identified as DS and JL, were also injured during the shooting but survived. And who the indictment calls CA are who the government identified as the shooter, while Nip and another person, SJ, acted as the lookouts for this murder. Surveillance video from the corner store shows gunfire from the vehicles. Shells at the scene indicated that there were 3 different guns fired. Social media accounts, iCloud information, and cell phones that belong to Haas and Bilal connect Haas and Bilal Mitchell to the murder. In the indictment, it says police recovered 3 sets of FCCs at the scene of Qasim's murder: 9mm, 40 caliber, and 22 caliber. The 9mm casings match FCCs from a shooting committed on November 20th, 2018 at Bridge and Hawthorne Streets, just 13 days prior to the murder of Hassan Rogers. When trying a conspiracy, the feds will include what's called a quote overact in the indictments. An overact is a physical action, observable and done openly, that is taken in furtherance of a crime, often a conspiracy. Messages from Haas's iCloud immediately prior to the November 20th, 2018 shooting indicate that he was trying to keep his girl out of the area where the shooting was about to happen. The following day, she asked Haas if he was the one, quote, shooting yesterday, and Haas tells her not to text him, quote, dumb shit like that, and to, quote, be smarter, because it's just a small mistake that can cause big problems, he told her. The next day, on November 21st, 2018, another member, DK, was arrested for this shooting after his own mother identified him in surveillance footage from the shooting. Haas's iCloud indicates that he believed DK's arrest was his fault. He said, DK got booked for some shit that's my fault. The intended target was from Tackawana, LH, another government witness. DS, a 4800 Tackawana member and later victim of the shooting and federal witness, sent Bilal Walk Down Mitchell a direct message on Instagram making fun of one of Haas's original songs. The same day, Haas recorded a YouTube video called Shooting a Mossberg Tag 22. Haas and Bilal also filmed 2 videos pointing a long gun consistent with a 22 caliber Mossberg, the indictment said, at the camera. On December 3rd, a video from Haas's Instagram account that appears to have been posted on the day of the murder, which said Haas is MVP of the year. In the early morning hours of December 4th, 2018, approximately 13 hours after the murder, Haas Googled a Fox 29 article about the murder. That day, Haas and Bilal Mitchell took a series of pictures holding a 22 caliber Mossberg rifle, which was the type of gun used in the Rogers murder. These pics were taken in a bando used by SG-17, and members of the group often took pictures of themselves holding guns, in this case the actual murder weapon, and posted them on social media to let the ops know that they were responsible for some of the things going on. Text messages in Bilal Mitchell's phone following the shooting discussed the location of one of the murder weapons. He talked about how if the owner of the bando finds the gun, it'll be a quote, bad John. These pictures are geotagged to the bando. The law enforcement knows that they gather on Scattergood Street. Haas took a screenshot of the candlelight visual information for Hassan Rogers on December 6, 2018. Hassan Haas Elliott obtained surveillance video of the murder, which was saved to his iCloud account. In prison letters written by Haas to Bilal, Haas discusses the murder of Glizzy, stating, "You was Kobe and I was Shaq. Niggas can't fuck with us honestly." He ended with, "We did it our first year on the block together, LOL." Finally, Haas included Glizzy, one of Rogers' nicknames, on what the government alleges as a quote kill list on his prison wall. Mugga, which was Dante Walker's nickname, and O'Connor, as in Sergeant James O'Connor, appears on the list. Mugga was a known nickname for Walker, and Glizzy was a known nickname for Rogers. Pictures, at least one of which was saved to Haas's iCloud account, show that 4800 Tackawana members created a memorial sweatshirt for Rogers with his photograph on the front and Glizzy written on the hood. A few months after the murder, Haas went to the Franklin Mills Mall and ordered a fake memorial sweatshirt using the same photograph of Hassan Rogers. Instead of Glizzy on the hood of the sweatshirt, the hood read, "F the ops."
We were just smoking on Glizz, this package that lasted an iPad. We were just swapping them out, every gun got a motherfucking body on it. You cannot walk in my shoes, last nigga tried many then banged out. Hey, I'm the shit with my crown now.
On January 25th, 2019, at approximately 5 a.m., Hassan Elliott and Bilal Mitchell went to the 1800 block of Harrison Street to destroy the memorial set up by Scene's friends and family on the corner where he was killed. While Bilal destroyed the memorial, Haas noticed movement from inside a car a few feet from the memorial. The car was occupied by CS and MH, who were sleeping inside. CS ended up getting shot by Haas in the thigh, and MH was shot in the hip. Police responded to the scene and recovered a bullet fragment from inside the car and one .40 caliber FCC. Based on the injuries sustained and the crime scene photos, it's clear that additional rounds were fired. The incident was captured on surveillance video and showed two men dressed in dark clothing approach the corner. While one destroys the memorial, another shoots at the car. Text messages on Bilal's phone also discuss the incident. Ballistic comparisons indicate that the FCC recovered at the scene, which was a .40 caliber, was fired from the same gun used to kill Tyrone Tyree on March 1st, 2019. Haas's fingerprint was on the magazine of the gun when it was recovered. On the evening of March 1st, 2019, Tyrone Tyree Jr., a 33-year-old, was shot and killed inside his vehicle while parked on a 5300 block of Duffield Street in the Frankford neighborhood. Todd went to the block in his 2004 Pontiac to buy some weed. Haas and Lowell Leaf approached the selling, but they ended up snaking him and decided to rob him instead. Before they approached to commit the robbery, they called Nip for permission to leave the drug block unattended. When they pointed their guns at Tyree, he reached down, likely for the gear shift, and Haas and Leaf shot and killed him. After the shooting, Ty's car rolled forward and struck the corner house at Duffield and Brill Streets. Tyrone Tyree was pronounced dead at Jefferson Torresdale Hospital at 12:27 p.m. At the scene of the shooting, police recovered 7 .40 caliber and 4 9mm fire cartridge casings. According to surveillance, Haas and Leaf fled the area on foot, moving through alleyways between Brill and Scattergood Streets towards Charles Street. Residential surveillance from Scattergood Street captured the pair entering a backyard at approximately 12:04 p.m., just 5 minutes after the shooting, where they stashed 2 handguns inside a barbecue grill. One of them, apparently Leaf, left a coat draped over the fence. Inside the coat, investigators found an Alcatel flip phone, chapstick, and headphone. Footprints in the snow led police directly to the grill, where they recovered a .40 caliber and a 9mm Smith & Wesson, both with obliterated serial numbers. Ballistic testings later confirmed that the cartridge casings at the crime scene matched the recovered guns. Additional surveillance from the neighborhood store taken 2 weeks prior showed the two entering and exiting the store. A Philadelphia police officer recognized the coat from the footage. Leaf appeared to be wearing the same coat, and Haas had the same shoes as those seen in the surveillance video from the day of the killing. On August 20th, 2019, at approximately 12:10 a.m., 30-year-old RB was sitting outside on his porch near the Tackawana projects when he was shot a total of 10 times in the neck, shoulder, forearm, calf, and thigh. Police officers placed him in the back of their patrol car and rushed him to the hospital. The photograph shows the back of their vehicle after officers transported RB to the hospital. RB had no connection to the criminal gang activity in the area, but was merely sitting on his porch. Bilal Walk Down Mitchell posted to his Instagram story immediately prior to and following the shooting. The first post is a picture of Bilal and others during a music video shoot where they burned a teddy bear stolen from a 4800 members memorial site. Mitchell added the emoji on top of the pic with the song Steppers attached to the post. An hour and 45 minutes after the shooting, Bilal, or Walk Down, posted another Instagram story. The second post featured a picture of Walk Down wearing a t-shirt with a teddy bear with the lyrics to Respect the Game by Meek Mill overlaid on the picture. Dante Mugga Walker was murdered on August 22nd, 2019 at the corner of Bridge and Hawthorne.
In Philadelphia's Frankford neighborhood is all caught on camera.
And now police are hoping that technology will lead them to a suspect. Eyewitness News reporter Crystal Cranmore is live at police headquarters with the details. Crystal, good morning.
Good Morning, Janelle and Jim. Well, a lot of times when there's a shooting, it's usually witnesses at the scene who are calling police. But in this case, we're told that police in the real-time crime unit were the witnesses this time around. They saw the shooting happen on surveillance, and within seconds, they were able to get police out to the scene. Now they're hoping that this critical piece of evidence will lead them to the gunman. Let's go ahead and look at some video of the shooting. This was the scene around midnight in the Frankford section of the city. You can see evidence markers near multiple shell casings, at least 23 according to police. Now, when officers got to Bridge and Hawthorne Streets, they found a 30-year-old man on the sidewalk bleeding from his head, back, and torso. Police say the victim, not yet identified, was shot twice in the head and twice in the back. First responders rushed him to Temple University Hospital, where unfortunately investigators say he died at 12:23 this morning. His ball cap among the items left behind as police collected evidence from the scene. Now,
this murder was allegedly committed in retaliation for the shooting of a SG member on August 17, 2019. The group, unsure of which op, Hawthorne or Tackawana, so they retaliated against both. By the way, Hawthorne goes by H&M, or Hawthorne or Marlowe. The other retaliatory shooting for this was the shooting of RB I mentioned earlier. On the evening of the murder, SG-17 members learned that members of H&M were on a nearby porch on Marlowe Street. Haas and Bilal approached from the alleyway behind the corner store, and MB and Dom approached from an alleyway on the other side of Bridge Street. They converged on Mugga Walker, who was near the corner of Hawthorne and Bridge Streets. They fired numerous shots, killing Walker. Investigators collected a total of 24 .40 caliber shells at the scene, fired from 3 different weapons. Call detail records showed that MB placed 2 outgoing phone calls to Bilal, the first at 11:41 and the second at 11:58. The first 911 call for the murder went out at 12:08 a.m. Surveillance footage from a building across the street on the Pedrito Mini Market, the corner store, shows 2 hooded figures creep out of the alleyway, Haas and Bilal. A city camera showing the intersection shows the 2 figures run towards Bridge and Hawthorne firing guns.
What the fuck it is, like, oh, blocking this fucking bitch. Bump into that nigga boy baby mom, that bitch ain't want no smoke, wasn't even claiming me.
The music video, Frankford Purge, was posted to YouTube on February 2nd, 2020. The government used excerpts of the video to prove the group members had knowledge of the enterprise, association with the enterprise, and other charges directly related to the RICO. The film and locations, the government alleged, were in opposition gang territory. On the site of the murder, Dominique Parker is charged with committing. The next part, coming directly from the indictment, just like this whole video, should serve as a warning. By the time the case went to trial, they had flipped nearly the whole gang that was involved in the violent crimes. There are at least 20 people in this indictment only mentioned by their initials, and the feds seem to be bragging in some parts about how many people they were able to flip. Every defense Haas, Dom, and Nip threw up for the admittance of this video was refuted by the fact that so many people who were there testified against them at trial. The ATF, which was the main agency on this case, claimed that 13 people were out there that day and implied that 3 of them cooperated on this case. The feds meticulously go through the video lyric by lyric and connect almost the whole song to real events. They start with the first verse by Dom.
Oh, blocking this fucking bitch. Bump into that nigga boy baby mom, that bitch ain't want no smoke, wasn't even claiming me. Spend, nigga. You spin my block, you better bring 100 shots, bitch. Catch your op, then we throw him on the timeline. Flat wine, throw that pussy on the timeline. Digging bodies out the grave, I'm the devil, bitch. Like fuck me, fuck Glizzy, I'm the devil, bitch. Call pop, that's my motherfucking bang, bro. We spin your block.
First, as the Boy's baby mom, they said that Boy is a member of 4800 Tackawana, and that when Dime saw the mother of Boy Boy's child at 7-Eleven on Frankford Ave, she denied involvement with Boy Boy, and that Dime sent AD, a member of SG-17, and Biba, an associate of SG-17, to beat up Boy Boy's baby mom. Hami was another member of 4800 who committed suicide while running from the police. Glizzy is one of Hassan Rogers' nicknames, as we've already said, and Nip is charged in the indictment in connection with the Scene Glizzy murder.
Call pop, that's my motherfucking bang bro.
One cooperating witness describes the lines as referring to Laquan Hayes, aka Poppy, who used to live in the area of 4800 Tackawana, but became friends with Dom. Dom Parker is charged with shooting BL, who shot and killed Poppy.
That's better body, bitch. Got my youngins on some shit. They spin your block, they spin again, they try and drive shit. Gang shit. Walk down, headshots. Put 30 in the stick.
This refers to the murders and shootings committed by Haas, Bilal, Leaf, and CA, who are all of Dom's, quote, young bulls.
Man, long live King Lambs. Bitch, I'm from 1700, you calling me out like them bodies don't stand for something. Like I don't want down with that Glizzy, they know who smoke Glizzy in the name of King, little bitch, we steppin'. You can get shot in your face, I won't go out like Terry. Gun in this bitch, got me 20, you claiming that 48. Huh? What the fuck would you thinking, nigga?
Multiple cooperating witnesses will testify that all four committed numerous shootings and at least one or more murders each prior to the filming of this video. Haas brags about the murder of Scene Glizzy.
Man, what done, we go body for body. I know them niggas when they run of us. You catch me in traffic, won't go out like Keno. I turn that 30 to 0. And we got them still like we play for a hockey team. He try to run and we box him.
As discussed earlier, Keno was a 4800 Tackawana member who committed suicide while running from police.
Like Keno, I turn that 30 to 0. And we got them still like we play for a hockey team. He try to run and we box him.
The lines are direct references to Walker's murder, specifically how they use guns with extended magazines.
Young nigga with all kind of shit. 16 started dropping shit. Acting like you don't remember, nigga. 16 spinning through your block and shit. Wait, remember? Whole team really dropping shit. 53 down to 17 to the youngest nigga got a body, nigga. Everybody catching bodies, nigga. Fuck around, be next. Your homie out there sweep. He fuck around, got sweat. I guess he thought he was a barber for cutting too many fades. When killers walk down on it, a bullet ripping through his fade. You hit my man, but he's still walking. Hit yours, nigga ain't talking. You said you turned the bar to a deli. I can't believe what you fucking selling.
Dante Mugga Walker was a barber from around the neighborhood. He was sweeping up hair next to his barber chair when he was shot and killed. Kelvin Nip Jimenez is featured in this portion of the video, along with Haas, Walk Down, and L Block Leak. This part of the video is filmed in the ops block at the exact location where Mugga was murdered. Nip has a broom in his hand and is sweeping the sidewalk, mimicking the circumstances. A cooperating witness present at the time of the filming would testify that it was Nip's idea to reenact the murder when he found the broom in the area. On December 27, 2019, at approximately 12:12 p.m., Hassan Haas Elliott shot at two H&M members, LH and GT, at the corner of Bridge and Hawthorne. GT returned fire. RR, an innocent bystander who was driving through the intersection, was shot in the stomach but survived. Haas would end up being charged with 11 attempted murders, with this being one of them, pled down to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, on top of the 4 homicides. In May 2019, the ATF opened a drug investigation in the area. Investigators introduced a confidential informant specifically to buy from the people associated to SG-17. In June 2019, a CI working at the direction of law enforcement surveyed the area near 1700 Brill Street for 2 hours and reported an open-air drug market where crack, coke, weed, and pills were readily available. The CI also saw people carrying weapons and overheard conversations referencing an ongoing turf war between the dealers on Brill Street and those on Hawthorne Street. From another SG-17 member identified as CJ, the CI obtained a contact number for Kelvin Nip Jimenez. Over the following 8 months, Nip became the subject of a sustained undercover investigation that included at least 7 controlled buys. These transactions were coordinated through recorded phone calls and took place near the 5300 block of Duffield Street, a location that would later emerge as a frequent hub for SG-17 activity. Each purchase followed a similar pattern. Nip would confirm transaction details by phone, meet the CI in a predetermined alleyway or parking lot, and exchange crack for usually thousands in pre-recorded buy money. On multiple occasions, Nip sold the CI quantities ranging from 17 grams to nearly 40 grams of crack, totaling several hundred grams across all buys. Notably, on December 17, 2019, Nip left a residence on the 5300 block of Charles Street and delivered drugs to the CI using his Nissan Altima. In the final transaction on February 12, 2020, he met the CI, an undercover officer, outside Ricky's Place Bar and Grill on East Cheltenham Avenue, where he handed over 39.5 grams of crack and received. Each of these exchanges were documented with video surveillance, recorded phone calls, and first-hand testimony from the CI, building a case that ultimately supported racketeering and narcotics charges against Nip in the federal indictment.
Solid. No, I'm in a hole. Ain't letting me out no time soon. Holding it down. That shit. Free my brothers. We ain't no gang. We brothers. We ain't no gang. They got us mistaken.
Tell them again, bro.
They got us mistaken identity. I'm innocent. Oh man, they see charge me up. They got me with 3 of them doing 11 attempts. Shit wicked. Free loads, man.
On March 26, 2019, Philadelphia homicide detectives obtained an arrest warrant charging Hassan Elliott and Khalif Sears with murder and firearms offenses. On Friday, March 13, 2020, Sergeant James O'Connor and members of the PPD Special Weapons and Tactics, or SWAT unit, executed an arrest warrant for Haas at the second-floor apartment of 1688 Bridge Street. The residence at 1688 Bridge is a 2-story row home divided into 2 apartments, one on each floor. At approximately 5:40 a.m., Sergeant O'Connor and the SWAT unit arrived at 1688 Bridge. Officer Cyprian Scott took the lead position in the tactical team under the command of Sergeant O'Connor. Officer Scott knocked on the door to the front porch and loudly announced police presence, but received no response. The SWAT officers entered the porch through the unlocked door and proceeded to the door leading to the second-floor apartment. Officer Scott knocked and loudly announced the police presence again, but received no response, according to the officers. Officer James Ashford breached the door, revealing a staircase that led to the second-floor apartment. The SWAT officers ascended the stairs in a tightly packed stack formation led by Officer Scott, who was followed by Officer Patrick Saba. Sergeant O'Connor was third in position behind Officer Scott and Saba. While ascending the staircase, the officers continued to loudly announce their presence. As they climbed the stairs, Officer Scott and Saba saw light coming from under the door in the middle bedroom and heard, "Fuck, it's the cops," and "Yo, it's the fucking cops." Just as Officer Saba reached the landing at the top of the stairs, gunfire erupted from behind the closed middle bedroom door directly across from the staircase. Sergeant O'Connor, who was approximately 3 steps behind the landing, yelled that he was hit and fell back down the narrow stairs onto other SWAT officers. Officer Saba returned fire from the second-floor landing with his .223 M4 service weapon. Officer Norrat and Fitzpatrick carried Sergeant O'Connor from the property and placed him in a hospital car. Sergeant O'Connor was rushed to Temple University Hospital, where he was pronounced dead at 6:09 a.m. A subsequent medical examination found that Sergeant O'Connor was shot twice, once in the left forearm and once in the torso, millimeters above the area protected by his body armor. Meanwhile, inside the house, Officer Saba backed into the kitchen. using a doorway for cover, and continued to fire until the gunshots from the middle bedroom stopped. Once the gunfire stopped, Officers Saba and Scott stood silent for a few seconds. Officer Scott again announced police loudly and ordered the occupants of the middle bedroom to come out of the room. Officer Saba and Scott heard multiple hushed voices coming from the middle room. One of the men said, "We're shot." Officer Saba told the occupants to come out of the bedroom with their hands up. The same voice responded and said, "Okay, stop shooting." After a few seconds, the middle bedroom door opened and 4 men exited. Once the men were secured, Officer Scott and Saba entered the middle bedroom. They immediately noticed guns littered throughout the room. In the approximately 10 by 11 foot room, 10 guns, a Glock conversion device or switch, bulk and packaged crack and weed, and new and unused drug packaging material, a scale, a cutting plate with razors and white residue, and 6 cell phones were recovered. DNA evidence linked all 4 defendants to the firearms and the narcotics. 9 of the 10 firearms were handguns littered throughout the room in plain view. The only completely concealed firearm was a Mossberg International 22 caliber semi-automatic rifle that was hidden under the bed. Forensic units later determined that the Mossberg was the weapon used to kill Sergeant O'Connor. 8 of the 10 guns contained DNA from at least one of the 4 suspects, with strong support showing Hassan Elliott's DNA on the switch.
Philadelphia police officers place a casket carrying the body of one of their own in the back of a hearse at Temple University Hospital. 46-year-old Philadelphia Police SWAT Corporal James O'Connor was killed in the line of duty hours earlier while serving an arrest warrant.
We just want everybody to know it's a very sad day.
Commissioner Danielle Outlaw says the 23-year veteran and married father of 2 was shot near his left shoulder blade just before 6 a.m. He and other SWAT members were in Frankford serving an arrest warrant at a home on the 1600 block of Bridge Street.
We were there to hopefully locate and take into custody Hassan Elliott. We did not realize that his co-defendant, Khalif Sears, was going to be on location.
According to police, 7 people total were inside the house at the time of the shooting. 6 on the second floor, 4 of them, all men, hid in a middle second floor bedroom. Detectives believe that is where 2 wanted murder suspects were hiding when Corporal O'Connor was shot as he came up the stairs. Murder suspect 21-year-old Hassan Elliott, who was taken out alive, was wanted in connection with a 2019 homicide. A second murder suspect, 18-year-old Khalif Sears, was shot in his hand. Corporal O'Connor had 15 years of experience.
Tyrone Tyree Jr. was a 33-year-old Philadelphia resident, known to be an aspiring rapper and working at Amazon. He was fatally shot on March 1st, 2019 in the Frankford neighborhood. His family believes he may have been targeted after receiving his first income tax refund. Weeks later, homicide charges were filed in connection with his killing, naming Hassan Elliott as a suspect and co-defendant Khalif Sears. Despite a warrant issued in late March 2019, it took authorities nearly a year to arrest Hassan Elliott. That delay indirectly contributed to the tragic death on March 13, 2020 of Philadelphia Police Sergeant James O'Connor. O'Connor was killed trying to serve the arrest warrant for Tyree. That decision to wait almost a year has drawn a lot of criticism. Kasim Glizzy Rogers was a 19-year-old resident of Frankford, Philadelphia, who was tragically shot and killed on December 3rd, 2018, outside the GNR Mini Mart on the 1800 block of Harrison. Dante Mugga Walker was 30 at the time of his death. He lived around the H&M area. Calvin Jimenez, aka Nip, who was 34, and Dominique Parker, aka Dom, 33, were convicted in trial in March of 2025. They were found guilty of all charges, including racketeering conspiracy, drug trafficking conspiracy, maintaining in drug-involved premises, assaults in aid of racketeering, and firearms offenses and related crimes. Nip was also convicted of the murder of Kasim Rogers and Dominique Parker of the murder of Dante Mugga Walker. Jimenez is scheduled to be sentenced on July 7th and Dom Parker on July 9th. Both face maximum possible sentences of life in prison. In January 2025, Hassan Elliott and Khalif Sears pleaded guilty to conspiracy to engage in a racketeer-influenced corruption organization, or RICO, violent crimes in aid of racketeering, to include murder stemming from the killings of Rogers, Walker, Tyree, and James O'Connor, and the 11 attempted murders that I mentioned earlier. Prosecutors have recommended that Hassan Elliott serve 55 to 75 years and Khalif Sears 35 to 50 years as part of their plea agreement with the federal authorities. A lot was left out of this story because I wanted to focus on the indictment. I didn't really get into the context of the war and violence that brought these men down. 4800 and H&M was catching a lot of wreck as well. They faced their own arrests and issues, and law enforcement indicted L Block and Scattergood when they did because of the cop getting killed. The fall of SG-17 brought a temporary sense of justice to families and victims, but it didn't erase the conditions that allowed such a group to thrive in the first place. The streets are a lie. Prosecutors dismantled SG-17 or L Block in court, but as we know all too well by now, the cycle always continues. Without deep, sustained investment in housing, mental health services, youth outreach, and neighborhood stabilization, gangs will continue to rise where the city leaves a vacuum. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Thanks for watching American Confidential, and until next time, be safe.